Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobby Capucci, and this is a morning update. Ghislaine Maxwell is about to lose her whole fortune. If she is convicted of these charges, all of that money is seized and will be, obviously, doled out to her survivors, because that portion of the case is most certainly on its way. There are going to be civil suits against her as well as the criminal suits, and all of her money is going to be subject to seizure. And once it's seized, well, it'll go into a fund like Jeffrey Epstein's money, and the survivors will get a piece of that as well, as they should. Every single person who gets caught up in this, every single person who is found guilty of these crimes that involving the Jeffrey Epstein criminal enterprise should have all of their assets seized, and all of those assets should go into a pool to be administered to all of the survivors. Because remember, we have a second wave of survivors that are coming forward, right? So the more money in that fund, the better. This man, this woman, they abused hundreds, if not thousands of girls. And as we saw from the episode yesterday and the article, there are a lot of girls that still have not come forward. So, Ghislaine Maxwell's money, that should definitely go into the kitty. Les Wexner's money, he gets convicted, into the kitty, and so on and so forth. Because these people must pay, not only financially, but they must pay by prison sentences. What has occurred here is a travesty. And the fact that these rich, disgusting so-called elite were able to get away with it for so long is an even bigger travesty. These people must be brought to heel. And one of the best ways to do that is to rip their fortune out from underneath them. Because without their money, they can't consolidate their power. The lifeblood for people like this is their money. And if you go after that money, you change the game. And with the report yesterday from the Virgin Islands about Denise George contacting 6 financial institutions looking for Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell type of accounts, you got to think that there's some people who are not sleeping very well right now. And on top of that, you know for a fact that Allison Moe and the prosecution in New York are going through her finances with a fine-tooth comb right now as well. And they will find stuff there. There's no doubt in my mind that if there is a good forensic accountant on the case, that they will unearth loads of financial discrepancies and financial crimes. Because these people thought that they could do whatever they want. They thought that they were completely insulated. Not only were they being protected by on high, right, someone in the intelligence agency, but they were also being protected by their friends in these banks, their friends like Jess Staley. They were helping them facilitate all of these transactions and move money here, move money there. So they were really insulated from scrutiny for quite some time. But now, the walls are closing in, and the house of cards is tumbling down upon itself. Our article today is from The Express. The headline, Ghislaine Maxwell could lose £15.6 million fortune to Jeffrey Epstein survivors. This article was authored by Mike Parker. Ghislaine Maxwell risks losing her entire U.S. fortune of £15.6 million in compensation if found guilty of procuring children for pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, it was claimed yesterday. The FBI says it unearthed the British socialite, pedophile, child abuser, general all-around scumbag, money in 15 separate bank accounts which bear both her name and several others which may be aliases. Maybe aliases? Wait a minute. Hold on. I thought that we were to believe, according to Ghislaine Maxwell's defense team and the honorable, stupid-faced, mustache-wearing Geraldo Rivera that Ghislaine Maxwell was up to snuff, that she wasn't going to go anywhere. She plans on going to trial. How dare you not grant her bail? She has 19 aliases, 436,000 bank accounts, passport to France. Yeah, she's not a flight risk. Shut up, Geraldo. About half her wealth, just over £7.8 million, was reportedly managed by J.P. Morgan Chase Private Bank in New York, which also, at one stage, handled part of Epstein's vast fortune. And we understand what J.P. Morgan's about. We know that the situation at J.P. Morgan was facilitated by none other than Jess Staley. And how long now have I been calling for this man to be booted out of Barclays? And I said by the end of the summer probably, or a little bit later, that is going to occur. And with this new information coming out now, with JP Morgan being in the crosshairs directly of this investigation, you have to think that Jess Staley and Barclays are shitting bricks right now. Gold bricks because, it's Barclays and they're a bunch of rich bankster criminals, so they have plenty of gold to shit, but nonetheless, they are defecating bricks. And it's funny to think that Jess Staley was the head honcho over here at JP Morgan for so long. He was the one that facilitated all of this. He was the one that put the Jeffrey Epstein card into motion and into play. So Jess Staley's time at Barclays most assuredly is limited at this point. All of Maxwell's accounts have been frozen, and a senior official confirmed the FBI is examining her finances along with all other evidence seized in minute detail. And this is big stuff here, because again, I know for a fact that a lot of these guys and people involved in this figured out ways to insulate themselves from the relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. But one thing they can't insulate themselves from is an investigation into the finances. If you track the finances between Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise and all of the enablers that were around him, there is no doubt whatsoever that you are going to find massive financial crimes were committed. Federal prosecutors can make every last penny the subject of a forfeiture order if she is found guilty at her trial next year and can be established she was paid all her money by Epstein. And see what they're doing here, folks? They're trying to tie it together, right? One person involved in a crime certainly can't be a conspiracy to commit a crime, right? But when you have multiple people involved, well, that, my friends, becomes conspiracy. And conspiracy turns into RICO. That's exactly what they're trying to establish here. They're trying to establish that all of this money was gotten from ill-gotten gains and that it was made in the pursuit of criminal activities. That's why her accounts have been frozen, and everything will be seized if she is found guilty. The government will seize every last dime, and Ghislaine Maxwell will have nothing to say about it. It's what they do to mafioso. It's what they do to crime bosses. It's what they do to drug dealers. They seize all of your assets if that money was gained through criminalistic, ill-gotten means. They could also confiscate the remote mansion near Bedford, New Hampshire, where she was arrested earlier this month. She is reported to have paid $1 million in cash, about £780,000 for the Forest hideout. And look, normal people can't just walk up to a place like that and dole out $1 million, right? Normal people don't have that kind of money. So, again, Ghislaine Maxwell obviously benefited from the Jeffrey Epstein criminal organization. Not only socially, but she benefited monetarily as well. And that's why I say it's so important to go after these financial crimes in this case and to tie them all together. Because we know that this is a big spider web, right? We know that there are people that are closer to the enterprise, and then we know that there are people on the outer rungs. But even those people on the outer rungs, if they were to have received ill-gotten gain money from Jeffrey Epstein, well, they're now part of this conspiracy. They're now part of this investigation. So when they start talking about going through the finances in minute detail, you know that things are heating up behind the scenes. The source added, many, like me, are hoping a whole lot is eventually allocated to the compensation fund that has been set up for Epstein's many, many survivors, most of whom are unlikely to see money from civil actions anytime soon. And, I think that we'll have to wait and see on that on the compensation fund, right? To see where it goes, how it's moving, if they're doing things the right way. We haven't had too many reports one way or the other about progress of the fund. So I'm going to look a little bit more into that, dig a little deeper and see if we've had any updates lately, but it doesn't seem that there has been any movement. The main storyline here so far, right now anyway, is the arrest of Ghislaine Maxwell. So I'm not sure where that compensation fund is at as far as where they are when they're going to be paying, but I do know that Ghislaine Maxwell's fortune would be a welcomed addition to the sum of Jeffrey Epstein's wealth. Lawyer Tom Copeland from Florida, whose firm represents 6 Epstein survivors, said, Miss Maxwell and her legal team are fully aware that her finances are among the many threads being pursued by agents in microscopic detail. She must know she risks losing everything. And again, we've talked about this a lot here on the podcast. Forensic accountants, chasing the money, going after a racketeering case. And it most certainly seems like that's what they're building here. Federal prosecutors have already indicated they believe Maxwell, who faces up to 35 years behind bars if convicted, earned the fortune over the course of a decade that they claim during which she recruited underage girls for Epstein and his rich and powerful friends. So, according to the prosecutors, you know where they stand right now. They 100% think Ghislaine Maxwell is guilty. They think that she was involved with Epstein's criminal enterprise, and they also think she had a leadership role. So we know where the prosecution's coming from right now, and we know that they're charging hard, at least Allison Moe is. But again, we always have to remain skeptical of the federal government and the Department of Justice, right? We can't let our guard down and let them pull the old okie dokie on us. Got to keep it up, got to keep the pressure on them and make sure they're doing the right thing. With that said, so far with this Maxwell arrest, they have done pretty well. They have done a pretty good job. They're following all of the guidelines that an investigation like this should follow. They're shaking the bushes, they're kicking down trees and doors, and they're looking for other co-conspirators, it would seem. Perfect. That's what should be happening. About 3 decades too late, but here we are. So I think that where we're at right now, as far as the case, as far as prosecution and going after co-conspirators, I think with the arrest of Ghislaine Maxwell, the case definitely took a turn for the good, right? It took a turn for, all right, maybe these people aren't just dragging their feet and maybe they are doing their jobs. So I think that the prosecution has done a pretty good job since Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested. And I think moving forward, I think we're going to see more of that from this team of prosecutors. I think that Allison Moe is really set on blowing this whole entire thing up. And her actions certainly point towards that direction. Maxwell, 58, has pleaded not guilty to 6 federal trafficking charges and says her role for the late financier, pedophile, was to manage his luxurious properties in New York, Florida, New Mexico, and the Caribbean. The former friend of Prince Andrew, who has strenuously denied having sex on 3 occasions with a 17-year-old girl, trafficked to him by her and Epstein, is being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York, after being refused bail. 2 of the properties owned by Epstein, who was found hanged in his jail cell, aged 66 in August last year while awaiting trial, have been put up for sale for a combined £86 million. And both of those properties, New York and in Palm Beach, are up on the market. Still no word on Zorro Ranch. Haven't heard a thing about that. But both of these houses are up on the market. And it looks like they'll be, trying to get those sold off pretty quickly to add that money to the compensation fund. The asking price for his Manhattan mansion is £69 million, and his Palm Beach, Florida home is valued at £17 million. Proceeds will initially go to Epstein's estate, but are expected to be passed to the compensation fund. Experts have estimated the fund, which began taking applications from survivors last month, could consume Epstein's entire estimated net worth of £509 million. We know that it's way more than that, right? Again, that's just the money that he has notated, the money that he has said, all right, these are my assets. That's nothing. His hidden assets are what I'm talking about here. We know that this man didn't just have the money that he had in these couple of bank accounts or whatever, right? This dude, money under the bed probably, money hidden in the walls, who the hell knows? But this amount of money here, the $634 million mark, is a bit low in my opinion. Maxwell's lawyers did not return calls for comment following two further setbacks last week for their high-profile client. One judge refused a request for a gagging order to stop opposing lawyers publicly commenting on her case, and a second judge ordered the unsealing of explosive documents relating to a 2015 civil case which Maxwell settled out of court 2 years later. And, of course, we're waiting on those documents to drop. By Thursday, Preska said that the Second Court of Appeals has to render their decision one way or the other, or Preska is going to go ahead and make them public. So, again, you see the worm turning here, where we were at a point where the rulings were never going in favor of the survivors, right? Remember how many times the court system abandoned them? Remember how many times the authorities failed to protect them? Well, now it certainly looks like things are changing, like the other shoe is beginning to drop. And I've said a million times on the podcast that are there no heroic prosecutors left at the SDNY, a place where supposedly they churn out heroic prosecutors on a daily basis. Enter Allison Moe. And again, folks, always have to remain skeptical, right? But we have to give credit where it's due. And Allison Moe has done a fantastic job so far when it comes to Ghislaine Maxwell and making sure that she does not get out on bail. So I'm going to give Allison Moe some props and definitely give her some credit for the way she is going about her business here in this case. And the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell's fortune is going to be added to this fund brings a smile to my face. Because people like Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, the worst thing you could possibly do to them, besides taking their power away from them, is taking their money. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All right, everybody. All of the links that pertain to the episode are in the description box. I will talk to everybody later, and I hope you all have a great Sunday morning.